to West Coast Jazz. This is your host, Von Norberg, a.k.a. the Jazz Man. I'm here with my co-host, the wonderful, the lovely, now the sexy, Cher Dial.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. I can't take it anymore. That's so wonderful of you. And I am glad to be back. We had a little bit of a hiatus for summer, and we are back in the saddle again, and we got a great show for you, the Sax Show.
Okay.
Plenty of sax.
There you go. And speaking of which, who are we going to start out with tonight?
Tonight, we are actually going to be starting out with John Coltrane.
Okay, can I say a few things? I bet you
Definitely.
You researched some as well.
Sure, but go ahead.
Okay, well, back when I was living out in L.A., my father would take me to a lot of the jazz shows around the West Coast, and we would, certainly when John Coltrane came to town, we were all over that. And I've always known him from his tenor sax playing abilities and the LPs that he recorded. But this one night we went there and he picked up this long silver stick. I said, well, what's that? And they pulled it up in the air and I said, this is a soprano sax. And do I have any requests? And I shot my hand up. I'm not shy. And I said, how about a few of my favorite things? So let's go into that and then we'll talk more after.
Sure. John Coltrane on West Coast Jazz.
Yes, we are. That was John Coltrane. Few of my favorite things. You do any background on this guy?
Well, he just was indelibly one of the most, famous saxophone players and well known of his time. Don't you think? I mean, it's like if you hear jazz, you always think of, John Coltrane. He was like so well respected by so many people.
And then when he hooked up with Miles Davis.
And Miles Davis, right, and Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, they came out with several golden LPs. And even if you weren't a heavy jazz fan, you fell in love with their melodies and their music and the way they worked together.
Right.
At the end of his career, and there is a documentary out on John Coltrane. I have not yet seen it, but he was actually doing education near the end, which a lot of them do. We're going to be featuring Dexter Gordon coming up in a little bit, and I actually saw him over at the University of Minnesota teaching jazz musicians. So.
Yeah, and John Coltrane was very religious, and his faith really, kept him going because he had a lot of hard times, but it just kind of kept him going through.
Well, there you brought up that hard times
That's
for
right.
jazz musicians
again.
Yeah.
All of them,
And
exactly.
That's, a lot of them, and I don't want to belittle that,
No.
said that the hard growing up part actually influenced them into the type of soul music they could create, and you could almost feel, you ever heard the term, I'm going to wear my heart on my sleeve?
Right.
Well, they wear their heart in their instrument.
Sure. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So.
No, for sure. Oh, my gosh. Well, now we have another great saxophone and alto sax player, James Moody.
Okay, well, you're going to hear a lot about James Moody. And when I say that, I'm talking about all of the great musicians that he played in the background for them until he got enough fame where he could come out and start doing his own stuff. And this is a great song, and I think, from if Coltrane was my favorite soprano saxophone player, James Moody would be my favorite alto sax player. So let's give him a listen.
Sure. In 1985, he wrote a biography, Moody's Mood, about not only himself but the jazz industry, and that's a really good read. I was reading part of it, so it's, in case you want to read up on some interesting facts.
He actually had a song, Moody's Mood of Blues.
Oh, right.
So I have that in my collection somewhere, but we're not going to feature it today.
Exactly. Well, here we go on West Coast Jazz with Might As Well Be Spring by James Moody.
Okay. Okay. That
All
was
right.
James Moody.
And that is, of course, the jazz man's favorite alto sax player.
Yes, it is.
And that was from 1961 off of his album At the Jazz Workshop Live.
And the song was
Might as well be spring.
Might As Well Be Spring. I hope
Uh-huh.
spring's here all the time.
Definitely. Oh my God, was that great. And like you were saying, it led up to the end was just spectacular, really,
Okay.
when you think of everything.
Hey, you guys playing any Kenny G in there?
Kenny G?
Yeah.
I think he's in the elevator, sir.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Oh, wow.
We don't play Kenny G on West Coast jazz.
No.
I don't think he's ever even ventured into real jazz music. Well, what do we got coming up next?
Okay, we have Art Pepper with the song, another alto sax
Yes.
player with the song Patricia, and some say that he was the world's greatest alto sax player. What do you think?
Well, I think he could have been. He had a tumultuous history. I think if you looked it up, he was in prison. He didn't have a lot of years to spend with his daughter. And I think he was also in and off of drugs,
Yeah, he had really a lot of that going on.
big drug
Yep.
problem. And when he got out of prison, he wrote this song about his daughter because he missed her and loved her so much. And when you hear the song, you're going to feel what he feels about his love for her. And also, if you've ever watched the Bosch series, or now it's called the Bosch Legacy, he's featured on both their films, and they talk about him a lot in the books. It turned out the character Bosch, this was his favorite alto sax man. So,
okay.
kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, and also I was reading, and they said that he's actually also known for his association with West Coast jazz,
Yes.
the West Coast jazz movement, or
Right.
whatever you would like to, call it at the time. And this is, of course, his video Patricia, and it's kind of a dark video. It's rare, but it was also taken from a documentary
Okay.
about him.
Well,
so it'll
that's-
be very interesting.
We introduced the real behind the scenes development of an artist. I also want to throw a shout out to Patty Wendling. You may remember she was in our first show.
Yes.
And
yes.
because her name is Patricia,
Right.
I want to dedicate this song to her.
All right. Art Pepper on West Coast Jazz.
Yes, we are.
I just tried to write a song that would show the way I felt about her, hoping that I could become close to her daughter. very deep feeling, and I get very sad. Sometimes I get angry. Sometimes I get happy. Like the beginning is real romantic and beautiful, like a dream daughter. I just wanted to try to forget everything that's happened from that moment to this moment. The fact that we have no contact whatsoever, and there's so many things have happened that there's no way that there's ever going to be any contact.
Okay, and of course that was Patricia by Art Pepper.
Okay.
And I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a little bit different, and like I said, from his documentary. So that was, again, Art Pepper.
Who do we have up next?
Next, we have Coleman Hawkins, which is the tenor sax. So maybe you could give a little description of the alto sax, the tenor sax, to the audience and the different saxophones, because you
Sure.
know probably best.
Okay. Well, like I said, we started out with John Coltrane on the soprano sax,
Soprano, okay.
which looks a lot like a clarinet,
Okay.
except for they're usually metal. And I don't think I've ever seen a black a soprano sax that's usually left to the clarinets. And then we stepped into the alto sax with James Moody and Art Pepper. And now we're going to get into the tenor sax, which is a lower sounding instrument. It's probably twice as long or big in size as a alto sax. Therefore, it can reach lower notes. It has a wider range, so you can go up and down different octaves. It's probably the favorite amongst kids coming up to pick up the tenor sax. It's a good for marching bands. And then we're going to finish off with, I think it's Jerry Mulligan, and we're going to do a baritone sax. And that is even larger yet, with a big winding top to it. It goes around.
Sure.
And you'll get to hear the differences when we get to that. So let's give this one a listen.
Okay, Coleman Hawkins on tenor sax with Loverman.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And how they get their kicks. Now, true, this is play without pay, but jazz musicians live for this moment. For them, it's as essential as breathing out and in. It's their lifeblood. Well, look who just made the scene. Coleman Hawkins, a jazz pioneer of incomparable stature. The Hawk was the very first jazz man to attain fame on the tenor sax, and although his role has been challenged many times during the past 40 years, in our book, Coleman Hawkins is still the champ. and cozy. He just can't wait until the hawk flies.
Let's do a little lover man there. About 5, you know.
Okay, that was Coleman Hawkins. And as you said, share the video. And I hope we have enough time, Richard, to include that in our show, because it gives you a real feel of what it was like back in the 30s and 40s in the jazz clubs.
Yeah, definitely. I wish all, like I was saying, I wish all, videos for jazz were like that. A lot of them are not live like that, and it would be so interesting to have them be live like that, so you could actually see everybody playing all the instruments and the main person playing. It's just interesting to see, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
But-
Well, and there's I think they called him the Gilded Hawk. In fact, there's an LP out, I think, by that name. I've got that in my collection. But Coleman Hawkins was a great influence, again, on the tenor sax. So,
Yeah, and it said that he was best known actually for swing music that transitioned into bebop.
yes. And swing went to bebop, went to progressive jazz, and then eventually avant-garde. And it's kind of lost its moment. But as I mentioned in earlier shows, if you go over to Europe or the Orient, you're going to hear a lot of it yet today.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, who do we got up next?
Next, we have another tenor sax. We have Dexter Gordon. And you like him, I know.
Well, as we said earlier, with James Moody being my favorite alto, actually Dexter Gordon is my favorite tenor. And a lot of people say, well, why not John Coltrane? And I guess, you know, a lot of that was, and I also met Dexter Gordon live, as I mentioned, over at the University of Minnesota in a club they called The Hole. And the fact that Dexter stayed consistent with his style of music, which I enjoyed, it put him a notch above John Coltrane, who went through 3 or 4 different levels of jazz to the point where it was hard to follow. Near the end of his career, you could not tap your toe to his music. So I kind of fell out of favor at that point of his life. But Dexter Gordon, great tenor sax, wonderful individual. He's passed on. He's also in a movie, and I'm going to, maybe you can look that up while we play his song.
Yeah, I actually have it. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor for his performance in the Round Midnight movie in 1986, and it was kind of based on himself.
Yes, and a lot
Unbelievable.
of jazz enthusiasts will remember. I remember in college, that was my first song they handed me, to go into a room and perfect Round Midnight. So
Okay.
it's kind of a jazz standard, and it was a wonderful movie, a little dark. Again, we're talking smoke, drink, drugs,
Right.
you know, the whole gamut. But if you really like jazz and you want to take a good snapshot, that's a great movie.
Yeah, and he was known as Long Tall Dexter. At 6'7" he was.
Yes.
That's pretty darn tall. All right, well, here we are with Dexter Gordon with Darn That Dream on West Coast Jazz.
Love the song. Okay. Well, what do we got next up?
Next, we have the baritone sax.
Okay.
With Jerry Mulligan. Do you have any stories about Jerry Mulligan?
Well, other than he's probably one of the top 2 or 3 baritone sax players over the years, well-renowned, well-known. Again, you're going to find out when you listen to this song just how low you can go on a saxophone. Now, there are bass saxophones. I don't want to belittle, and some of the other creative, inventive saxophones, but they got to be too many, and they were too much alike. But the baritone sax was the leader in, it's kind of like vocalist. You have an alto vocalist, a soprano vocalist, you have a tenor, right? Wonderful tenor singers, and baritone singers. That's where they kind of got all the names for the instruments. So this is the baritone, and Jerry Mulligan, and he's going to play what song there?
He is going to play Giroux.
Okay.
And I found some interesting facts on him well, he was married a couple times, but he had long relationships to actresses Judy Holliday,
Okay.
who was an actress in like the 50s and 60s, and Sandy Dennis,
Oh, yeah.
which was she was in the movie The Out of Towners and so many more. And I just thought those were kind of different combinations. Like I wouldn't picture them together, but he had long relationships with them, so I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, if you remember my story a while back where I took this young lady to see Mel Jackson, a lot of women in that period, they kind of liked the jazz environment, the smoky, sultry rooms, and they got infatuated with the jazz musicians, whether it was a good fit or not, hence the divorces.
Right.
But they would fall in love with the music and the individual.
Sure.
And so it wasn't unusual, especially out in the Hollywood West Coast area.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, well,
definitely.
let's take a listen
Jerry Mulligan with Giroux.
on West Coast Jazz. was Jerry Mulligan in Giroux. As you noticed through watching the video and the music, the instrument starts out a lot lower than a lot of the other instruments. If you were live and near the stage, sitting in your seat, it would vibrate. That's kind of a resonance, if you will, that happens. Very good music. And there are one other that we might not have time to play in tonight's show. You may want to catch up on is Pepper Adams. And if you like the baritone sax, scroll around in Google and you can probably, or YouTube, you could probably find Pepper Adams. Once you get into following him and others like him, you'll transition from a love or a like to a love, where you want more of it.
Yeah, definitely.
And now you're hooked. You're now a complete jazz fan. Once you admit, it's kind of like being an AA.
Yeah, right.
Once you admit you're a jazz fan, you're hooked.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
No.
So.
Definitely. Well, it was a great show.
Yeah, we love the show, and we always hate to say goodbye.
Yeah, and, thank you for joining us. And as always, you can go to jazzwithvaughn.com. And if you'd like to be a guest on our show, you can write us a little note on jazzwithvaughn.com. And we would love to have you in studio. Or we can even do a Zoom and add it to our show. And we would love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions on any music you'd like to play or a certain show, or if you have a jazz story that might be interesting for us to tell, we'd love to hear that. And you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and like I said, jazzwithvaughn.com.
Worldwide.
That's right, worldwide.
I should mention to the audience, too, we're going to be doing a second Men of Jazz show, and we're going to bring in a singer. He wanted to do a Vaughn Monroe from my godfather. He wanted to do one of his songs, so that'll be interesting. I literally dug him up.
Really?
And when I asked if anybody of my age listened to our show, he's way beyond my age, and I just respect the man immensely. And he'll be accompanying himself on guitar. So that's another show coming up. We got Men of Jazz Do, and then we have a big bands show coming up. And what's there? Oh, No Strings. Or Strings Attached.
Strings Attached.
Oh, and I think you'll enjoy that show as well.
Yeah.
So, well, again, thanks for joining us on West Coast Jazz.
We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. You know I hate to leave you, baby, but I'm leaving anyway. So long. You knew I'd have to leave you, baby, when you treated me this way. Don't cry. And if it's written for us, baby, maybe some old rainy day I'm gone. Perhaps you'll understand the reasons why you're driving me away. Farewell. Then maybe we can be together in the same old crazy way. Take care. And so long.